my boyfriend cheated on me and the girl tried to get her cousin to fight me. So a little background information. I was 14 and in 9th grade, and one of my friends had sent me a picture of my boyfriend, who we are going to call Julio, with another girl. And my boyfriend and I are neighbors, so I told him to meet me outside. I confronted him and I was like, why are people sending me this picture of you with another girl? Like, are you cheating on me or something? Now, let me tell y'all something, okay? Never ask somebody to their face if they are cheating on you. Never. Now, if you have physical evidence, like proof of them cheating, yeah, ask them to see if they'll lie about it, duh. Like, we all have to do that. But if you do not have physical proof, do not ask them if they are cheating on you.
Stupid.
Like, the whole entire reason that they are cheating on you is because they want to eat their cake and have it too. Anyways, so I confront him, and just like any other person, he has a long list of excuses. He's like, oh my gosh, absolutely not. That girl is crazy. That picture is from a long time ago when her and I were dating.
Hey, that's pretty good.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, that is actually one of the smarter excuses I've heard, because at that point you're gonna be like, oh, okay, they used to be in a relationship. You're not gonna ask her. Like, that's weird, at least to me. I don't want anything to do with anybody's ex-girlfriends.
Fuck no. And I'ma stand on that.
Anyway, so fast forward a few months, I decided to send that girl a friend request on Facebook, and she accepts it, and then she posts a story tagging who? My boyfriend. So then I kindly ask her if she's dating him, and then she goes, that's none of your fucking business. So me, on the other hand, you know, still trying to be the calm one because there's no reason to be hasty about the situation. I tell her that him and I have been dating and that I think he's cheating on me with her. Her and I get into a very heated argument when, like, girly, the whole point of this was not to argue. I just want to know if my man is cheating on me with you. Like, I hate when the side pieces get an attitude. Like, girl, the chances are after I find out that he's cheating on me with you, you can just have him. Because I am not a f***ing raccoon and I do not dig out the f***ing garbage, and he is garbage. Absolutely not. Anyway, so after a few hours, I end up calling my man, who was low-key never even my man in the first place, and I kicked his ass to the curb. And he got mad that I messaged this girl. You know what I hate even more than the side piece getting mad whenever you confront them? When your boyfriend gets mad at you for catching him cheating. Like, yes, baby, I went through your phone, texted that girl. Like, cry about it to the side, not me, because I do not have time to deal with that. The next day, a girl shows up at my ex house. So I'm getting super nervous that this girl's gonna try to come to my house and start something with me. Well, fast forward to the next day, my best friend comes over to my house, and there was a car sitting in the middle of the road, very close to my house. And my best friend kept telling me that we needed to leave. But, you know, my dumbass was like, no, we're not going anywhere, blah, 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 blah. It's nothing. Well, it was something. Because the girl who went over to my ex's house pulled up on us. And she got out of the car and tried to fight me. And yeah, it turns out that that girl was the cousin of the girl that he was cheating on me with. Look at him, classy, keeping it in the family. Go off, sis. The girl that he was cheating on me with finally snapped out of her delusion because she found out that she was getting cheated on by my ex with her cousin. Her and I talk and she's like, listen, if she tries to pull up on you again, let me know and I'll come and I'll beat her ass. Well, fast forward, that girl ended up having a baby at 16 or 17. And I don't know if it's his or not, because after a few weeks, she stopped coming around. And the girl that I originally had beef with, well, actually, let me rephrase that. The girl who originally had beef with me started dating my ex again. Him and I haven't talked since that day, but when he sees me, he literally always stares at me. And he sees me like every day, duh, because we're neighbors. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still in love with him, but that is the way life goes.
Story time about how my parents caught me selling my undies online. Disclaimers is not my story time of sending me on Instagram. I'm extremely spoiled. My family is extremely rich. This allows me to buy whatever I want. The problem is my dad caught me sneaking out of my window, so he grounded me for 2 months and took away my allowance. And my allowance is a lot. My dad usually gave me $150 a week. With that money, I would go to Starbucks every single day before school, and I would also treat my friends to Starbucks every now and then, more like every day. My friends and I would go to restaurants and have fancy dinners and lunches, and I also had a car. I would also go shopping almost every single Friday with my friends. I would get manicures and pedicures, and I could basically buy myself whatever I wanted just by asking my dad for the money. But now that I was grounded, that was not going to happen. By the way, I'm 20 now, but this was 3 years ago, so I was 17 when all of this happened. I can confidently say that I was like the queen bee in my high school. Number 1, I was in the cheerleading squad. Number 2, I was super pretty popular and had lots of money. Therefore, everyone wanted to hang out with me. I knew that I needed to maintain my status and also the life that I had become accustomed to. Not being able to go to Starbucks every single morning really made me depressed. That probably made you roll your eyes, but I said what I said. Now, there was no way I was gonna go get a job somewhere. You would never catch me working at a cafe or a restaurant or something like that. So I knew I had to start making my own money online somehow. I did some research and found out that people would sell pictures and video of their feet. So I signed up for this stupid website and decided to do it. The problem was that by the end of the week, I had only made $46. This was clearly not enough. So I did some more research and found out that you could actually sell your undies. So I took my last $200, went to Victoria's Secret and stocked up on undies. And this is when things get really fun. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my parents caught me selling my undies online. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I said me on Instagram. So I took my last $200, went to Victoria's Secret and stocked up on undies. I signed up to this website and within a week I had about 80 orders. So that means in 1 week I sold $2,000 worth of my own underwear. This is when I realized that I could charge way more than I had been. So I doubled the price and the following week I made $4,000. So here's the first mistake I made. I decided to tell my girlfriends about it and they decided to sign up and start selling their own undies. After a month, all of my friends and I were selling our undies, and we were all making bank. This also meant that we were spending lots of money. I started buying designer handbags and shoes. One of my friends even put a down payment to a car, and her parents started asking her tons of questions. And so did mine. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my parents caught me selling my undies online. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sending me on Instagram. When my parents realized that I was buying all these designer bags and shoes, they started asking me questions. I was strong and I kept my mouth shut. Now my friends, on the other hand, who were also selling their undies, one of them got questioned by her parents and she gave up all the information. She even told her parents that I was the mastermind behind everything and that I had told all the other girls to start selling their undies, which was true. So it was official, I had been caught. Of course, my mom's friend runs straight over to my house and she starts spilling all the beans to my parents. My dad and mom came straight to my room and started rummaging through everything. That's when they find all my purses, my shoes, had stacks of cash in my drawers, and under my mattress. All of my friends got grounded, but my parents decided to take it a step further. They were so disgusted with me that they actually kicked me out of the house. But the good news is I had a lot of money, so I got myself a really nice apartment. So jokes on my parents. With all the money that I made, I decided to start a side hustle. I have my own employees and run my business from my house. My parents and I still talk and my dad's even invested into my new company. When I look back at what I did, I do feel shame, but at the same time, I've become so successful from that money. What should I invest in next?
Story time about how my baby daddy ruined my pregnancy. So a little background information, I was 18 years old and I had just graduated high school. After my ex and I broke up, that's when I met my baby daddy, who we are going to call Mark. He had graduated high school the year before my freshman year in high school. So there was quite a bit of an age gap. I always had a little bit of a crush on him, but I never thought anything of it because he was literally a senior in high school while I was in middle school. So one day him and I hang out and I decided that I was not going to do the nasty with him because I did not want to get ghosted right away after. Been there, done that. But sadly, this is easier said than done. 2 weeks later, him and I are still doing the nasty and talking when all of a sudden he says, I think we should slow things down.
Wait, who?
Like, oh, okay, now you think we should slow things down. Pretty sure that seems a little ass backwards, but okay. Sure, bud. A week later, my stepmom and I are talking, and I low-key let it slip that my period was late.
Oh, hell no.
And not just like a day or two late, 5 days late.
Go home and get the gun. Damn!
So, you know, we stop at the nearest convenience store and we pick up a pregnancy test. I take the test, and then she gave me a hug reassuring me that everything was gonna be okay. All I could do was cry because, as I said earlier, I'm only 18 years old. I just graduated high school. I felt like all of those plans that I had for myself in the future were just ripped out of my hands, crumpled up, thrown in the trash, and lit on fire. So my parents end up taking me to Mark's house. I show him the pregnancy test and all of a sudden he starts freaking out. So then he tells me it's up to me whether I want to keep it or not. Like, yeah, I know. And we start to Google where I can go to get an abortion because guess what? Just guess. Where do I live? Texas. And what was my luck? Texas had just overturned Roe v. Wade the week before. And it would be expensive to travel somewhere. So obviously we decided not to do that either. Well, fast forward to November, my birthday month,
Girl, shut the fuck up!
Anyway, so like I said, fast forward to November. The one day I'm at work, and earlier Mark had told me that he was going to go to his brother's house. And since I was at work, I didn't care until, dun dun dun, one of my friends, my work friends, convinced me to check and see if he was where he said he was. I swear, it's always the work friends that have like the best intuition. Like if they tell you your man is cheating, he's probably cheating. And I'm not gonna lie, you know, something was a little bit sus about the fact that he was going to hang out with his nephew super late. Yeah, shit just like low-key wasn't adding up. I drive past his brother's house, and what do you know? He isn't there.
Don't be shocked. You're shocked? You're shocked?
So now I am blowing this motherfucker's phone up. After what feels like forever, he finally answers the damn phone. And I'm like, hey, I know you're not at your brother's house. Where the fuck are you? And he confesses to being at this girl Hannah's house. He is swearing up and down that nothing happened with this girl Hannah.
You lying? Yeah.
I believe him. I let it go because he tells me that he loves me and he wants to make things work.
Dumbass bitch.
So 4 days later, while he's at work, I realized that this tool bag left his Apple Watch at home, and that hoe had "go through me bitch" written all over it. So what did I do? I went through that shit, and I found some very raunchy text messages between him and Hannah. They had been talking about how much they wanted each other, and he had gotten mad at her for not wanting to do the nasty with him. On the screen are the receipts. I go psycho. After I confront him, he begs me not to leave him. And you know, he swears he'll never do it again. He lied.
Got him!
Turns out that he had been asking other girls for nudes and sending nudes to them. It caused my body so much stress that I literally had to have an emergency C-section due to how much stress my body and baby was under. Him and I aren't together anymore, but we still live in the same house. We actually sleep in separate bedrooms. He is an amazing father, but as a significant other, absolutely not. That man is garbage.
My girlfriend left me on my birthday to go be with her guy best friend. I, female 22, and my girlfriend 22. We both came out at the same time, and we were actually best friends before we came out. The reason why we both became best friends was because we both knew we were gay, but we didn't really tell anybody, but we knew each other was gay, if you know what I mean. We've been together for 6 months, and everything has been actually pretty good, with the exception of her guy best friend moving back to the city. When I met this guy, I knew right away that he has feelings for my girlfriend, especially when he gets drunk. He gets super handsy with her. Obviously, I told my girlfriend that I didn't like him around her at all, but she put her foot down and told me that I had no say in it because he was her best friend. I basically didn't bring it up again, but they would hang out all the time, and they were always together by themselves. They never invited me to go along with them. My birthday was coming up, and her and I had already booked a little cabin in the woods. We were very excited about this, but then she slowly started to ask me if I wouldn't mind if her best friend joined us, and I told her I didn't want him to be there. It was my birthday, and I was paying for the cabin. You see, my girlfriend's really broke, so I basically pay for everything. Then she threw a tantrum and said that I was being controlling and that I didn't want to let her have fun. Then she picks up the phone and calls her best friend to complain about me in front of me. Part 2 is up. My girlfriend abandoned me on my birthday so she could go hang out with her guy best friend. Part 2. After I told her I did not want her best friend coming to my birthday getaway, she threw a tantrum, called him, and complained about me in front of me to him. I was actually so hurt that I grabbed the phone and hung up. She looked at me and told me that I had no right to take the phone from her and blah, blah, blah. That's when I broke down into tears and asked her point blank, do you have a crush on this guy? Immediately, she said no. But then she told me she had a confession. She proceeded to tell me that they both lost each other's V cards to each other, and that's why they were so close. And that because they're trying to work on their relationship, I should let him come to my birthday trip, the one I'm paying for. I asked her if she had feelings for him once again, and she said no. And then I asked her if he has feelings for her. This girl just stayed quiet. Then she had the gall to say, what if he does? Is that really that bad? I actually had to explain to her why that would be a bad situation. Finally, my birthday comes around and she is nowhere to be seen. I was waiting for her in my car to drive to the cabin with her. An hour later, after she's supposed to be there, she sends me a text saying that she's gonna stay with him and that hopefully this distance will make our relationship stronger. Instead, I took my whole family to the cabin and now I'm ignoring her. Now she's been calling me nonstop. I took her not showing up as a breakup, but she wants me back. What should I do?
Story time about why you should be careful about who you go on vacation with. So a little background information, I was 18 years old and a senior in high school, and I had planned to go on a vacation to Barcelona in Europe with my best friend Kayla and this other girl Megan. Now, we didn't know Megan too well, but we were still friends with her. But I'm not gonna lie, the red flags started before we even left to go to Barcelona. Because as we were booking this trip, Kayla and I wanted to keep a smaller budget because we were going to be leaving for college when we got back. But Megan was not having it at all. She wanted to spend what seemed like every single last penny on this trip. But thankfully, we ended up compromising on a cheap Airbnb in the middle of Budapest. Well, fast forward to whenever we all land in Spain. So we go to the bar and we meet these two British guys. One's name was Will, and he was hanging around with Kayla and I. Then the other one, who we're gonna call Harry, he was chatting it up with Megan. Keep in mind, Megan has a boyfriend. So before we left, the guys asked for our Instagram, and Kayla and I said no, they respected it, but Megan, on the other hand, was giving out her socials. Now, initially, we weren't judging her because you can be friends with guys and have a boyfriend. Next night, we decided to hit the clubs again because literally every night there was crazy. We meet these guys. They were super cool, and one's name was Rylan and the other one's name was Ellis. Rylan was hitting on Megan, and Ellis was totally into me, which I didn't mind because he was so cute. And while we're all hanging out, Megan has the audacity to turn to me and be like, oh my god, I would totally do the nasty with Ellis if I didn't have a boyfriend. Meanwhile, she knew that I was interested in him. Anyways, so the rest of the night, Ellis and I basically spent it together. We exchanged socials, and Megan was super drunk, so we ended up going home. And then Megan decides to call her man while she's in the bed with Kayla, and we all sleep in one room so we can hear everything that the other person's doing. And then she starts having phone, you know what, with her man while she's in the bed with Kayla. And she's taking nude pics of herself and sending them while she's in the bed. Kayla felt extremely uncomfortable. Anyways, fast forward to the next day. Ellis and I hang out again, and we ended up kissing at the end of the night. And Megan was blackout drunk again, but this time on the way home, not only had she been flirting with so many guys, but she was trying to get with Ellis right in front of me. We ended up going to their apartments afterward, and literally, Megan invites him into bed with her. He didn't get into bed with her, but I was so pissed off. Like, you have a boyfriend, and also you're trying to steal some guy that you know that I like. Kayla and I were furious, so we just decided to go and walk home. Fast forward the next day, Megan wakes up and she can't remember anything that happened the day before. After this, the vibe was just awful, but Kayla and I tried to ignore it, and I'm pretty sure that Megan had no idea that there was a bad vibe. Like, I'm pretty sure that she thought nothing she did was wrong. Anyway, so we go to this beach party thing, and Megan was in charge of booking the beach party, right? Kayla and I gave her money to book tickets that was unlimited drinking. What did she do? She did not book the unlimited drinking package. She booked the regular one. Anyway, so Megan starts flirting with this 30-year-old man, and that's whenever Kayla and I decide, okay, we're gonna go walk around because we're not staying here for this. Like, this is our vacation too. Anyways, we make our way back over to Megan, and she looks pissed. She was so mad that we weren't staying with her while she talked to this old man, and we were like, we never even let you out of our sight. Like, we were barely 10 feet away from you, but we're sorry. She was like, yeah, it's the least that you can do after your behavior. And I'm like, what the fuck? So then all of us are arguing on the beach, and usually I'm the one who is very feisty, but Kayla went off. I have never seen her like this ever in my life, because Megan thought that she could just go off on us and we were gonna stand there and say nothing. So then she orders a cab, and we offer to get in it with her, but she says no, and we stayed and we had a really good night. Because one, this is our vacation too, and we are nobody's babysitters. We tried to make sure that you were having a good time, and we took care of you while you were blackout drunk, and you were not about to treat us like shit. Moral of the story, know who you're going on vacation with before you go on vacation.
Story time about how I got fired because I told my boss that I loved him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time and sending me on Instagram. Around 2 months ago, I started a new job. It was a CrossFit gym, and all I had to do was check people in before class started. One of the female owners of the gym ended up hiring me, but I didn't realize that she had a husband. Let me tell you, when this man came to the gym, I nearly fell off my seat. Not only is he the owner of the gym, but he's also a model. Like a legit published model. Then I found out that he was married to the woman that hired me. Being the bad bitch that I am, I knew that that was not gonna stop me. I have a not so little confession. I have dated about 3 married men in my past. I know it sounds like a lot, but married men are the best. They give you money, they take you out, and they keep it a secret. So there's just like no hassle when you date a married guy. So I came up with a plan. It was pretty much just to flirt with him, and let me tell you, he gave it right back to me. Girl, I am just as shocked as you are. I thought it was gonna be harder to get him to warm up, but nope. Slowly I realized that he started scheduling me on the days that he was there by himself. He was just giving me the vibe, like, you know the vibe. So I started waking up extra early to do my hair and my makeup and look absolutely fabulous when I got to work. Not only that, but I also started bringing him in food. I knew he loved protein smoothies, so I was taking him a protein smoothie almost almost every single day. And I would just happen to bring extra lunch with me and I would offer it to him and he loved it. This was the perfect excuse for us to sit down together and have lunch every single day. And then we got into him complaining about his dear wife. Now let me be honest, I didn't know where things were gonna go with him, but I definitely wasn't expecting him to start complaining about his wife so soon. This is characteristic of a man that wants to cheat. A little backstory on the wife, she is a ball buster. She also kind of has a short temper, which kind of scares me. By the end of my second week there, I knew I had him in my pocket. But then he had to go away for a shoot, which meant that I wasn't gonna see him for 2 weeks. Part 2 is up. Story time about how I got fired for telling my boss that I loved him. Part 2. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. That's when he went away for 2 weeks on a business trip and I was so sad. And that's when I realized I was in love with him. Like truly, madly, and deeply. And I only knew that because I wasn't flirting with anybody else. I was only thinking about him and waiting for him to come back. So during those 2 weeks, I took advantage and I started going to the gym every single day. I mean, I worked there, so I started working out like crazy. He happened to mention that he loves girls with abs. So I basically went on a 500 calorie deficit and I was pretty skinny by the time he got back. I would not recommend this to anybody because it's absolutely treacherous. I love food and I was always in a bad mood until he came back. The next time he saw me at the gym, I looked phenomenal. He walked up to me and said, "Oh my God, I missed you so much and you look fucking amazing." I melted into a puddle. The following day, he and I both opened the gym together and of course I brought him his favorite smoothie and he asked me if we could catch up. That's when he asked me if I had been dating anybody while he'd been gone. The fact that this man was already jealous after not seeing me for 2 weeks let me know that he was vibing me just as much as I was vibing him. So I did the logical thing and I said yes. He looked at me dead in the face and said, "Why are you gonna date somebody when you have me?" I was so shook, I actually didn't know what to say and he laughed. Then he said, "Oh, you know, I'm just joking. I'm just messing with you." And I said, "No, you're not. You actually meant that, didn't you?" That's when we just both stared at each other without saying a single word. I actually thought he was gonna kiss me, but he didn't. Then he confessed that he was so attracted to me that he didn't know if I should stay working there. I told him that we could just simply stay away from each other so that I wouldn't have to quit. He said that that's not going to work for him because he actually wanted to see me and talk to me all the time. After that, I could tell that he was mustering up the courage to kiss me or to do something, but he was scared. Go to part 3. Story time about I confessed to my boss that I loved him and he fired me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. After he confessed his feelings for me, I could tell that he was just trying to be close to me like all the time. He would find any excuse to touch my arm or my shoulder or my neck or my hair. And I was super flattered. By the way, I'm already in love with him at this point. All I was waiting for was for him to actually kiss me or to make the first move. Then I noticed some weird stuff happening between him and his wife. Do you remember that they both own the gym that I work at? Well, she started coming to the gym in the mornings when he was supposed to be there. So every time I would bring an extra protein smoothie and an extra lunch for him, I would have to hide it from her. That's when one day he asked me if we could meet up at an undisclosed location. It was pretty much just an empty parking lot and I went into his car and then we talked. He confessed to me that he was having an affair with somebody else from the gym and that this person was starting to go a little bit crazy because she saw him and I flirting. He told me that this woman was crazy and that she might even tell his wife about us. So basically he wanted me to not flirt with him anymore and that maybe we could see each other outside of work. But that even that would be too dangerous just in case she was following him. I asked him to tell me who it was and he gave me a hint. He said, "She's the really loud one." Immediately, I knew who he was talking about. It was one of the current gym members who comes to every single class with her husband. I could not make this stuff up. Then he basically told me straight out I needed to not speak to him at all at the gym. And that if this woman ever came up to me and asked me anything, I needed to just play dumb. To be honest, I actually got scared at this point because he told me that she was dangerous and crazy. So we both actually started acting like we didn't know each other. But the thing was, he wasn't trying to see me outside of work. He always kept saying that he was too busy or that his wife couldn't find out. So I wasn't talking to him at work at all. And again, this just solidified the fact that I was totally in love with this man. And then I found myself extremely jealous at the thought of him having an affair with this other woman. Not just that, but one day I walk into the office and he's full on making out with his wife on their desk. I felt totally betrayed and lied to. This whole time he's talking about how much he hated his wife, but then he's making out with her. And the woman that he was having an affair with was coming to the gym all the time and always grabbing on him and pulling him. I was jealous and envious all the time. It actually got to the point where I couldn't do my job because I was always aware of where he was and who he was talking to. Finally, we both show up to open the gym one day and we have some privacy. That's when I told him that I was really jealous and that all I wanted to do was be with him. And then the words just came out of my mouth. I said, "I love you." He looked horrified. He looked confused and angry. Then all he said was, "I have to fire you." Then he said that he couldn't have me around because I was too much of a risk. I literally begged him not to fire me, but he said no. I even tried to take it back. The next day he gave me a $3,000 check and told me never to come back. I drive by the gym every single day just to check up on him, and I'm still totally obsessed. My friends actually think I'm going crazy, but I'm just in love. Should I just forget about him or do I have hope?
Story time about how I came out to my homophobic parents.
So a little background information, I was 14 or 15 and I was a freshman in high school. And all throughout middle school, I had been questioning my sexuality because I didn't really know what I was into, as do most kids my age. Well, due to this, I was bullied in school because people would always ask me, oh, do you like boys or girls? And when I would say that I don't know, they would call me slurs. So anytime that I got into a relationship, I would keep it a secret, and the only person that knew was my best friend. But the summer before my freshman year, I got together with my current boyfriend, and we're gonna call him Andrew. Andrew and I met through Snapchat through a mutual friend. We started FaceTiming all the time, and we found out that we lived in the same area, so we started hanging out all the time as well. Well, eventually him and I started dating, and after about 3 or 4 weeks, we took our relationship a little bit further, and his parents knew that he was gay and that we were in a relationship. But my parents, on the other hand, did not know. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I came out to my very homophobic parents. So, like I said before, my boyfriend and I had decided to take our relationship a step further, and his parents knew that he was gay and that him and I were in a relationship. But my parents, on the other hand, did not know. They just thought that him and I were best friends that hung out every single day. But yeah, my parents think that doing the nasty before marriage is a sin, being gay is a sin. Pretty much doing anything is a sin. So the one day I was in my room watching RuPaul's Drag Race. By the way, I don't know if I pronounced that right. And then my mom walks in and she says, I don't want you watching these men in wigs and heels, acting like females, blah, blah, blah. That's a sin. Like, Mom, go get a fucking life. Thanks. And then she says, if I find out you're a part of this, you're going to need God and Jesus to protect you from me. So my boyfriend and I are in complete shock. Well, then I finally decided that I was going to grow some balls and tell my mom that I was a part of that community. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how I came out to my super homophobic parents. So, like I said, my mom was like, if you're a part of this community, you're gonna need God and Jesus to protect you from me. And I was really upset. I started crying, and my boyfriend, he's like comforting me. I finally decided to grow some balls and tell her that I was, in fact, a part of the community. Well, I ended up getting my ass beat. They also told me that they were going to take me to a priest to get an exorcism. So I basically moved out of my parents' house and I moved into my uncle's house, who's a part of the LGBTQ community. And he's in full support of my boyfriend and I's relationship. I blocked both of my parents and I haven't talked to them ever since I moved out. Well, that's a lie. The only time that I did talk to them was to wish them a happy Mother's Day and happy Father's Day. But other than that, I decided that I want to be happy, and to be happy, I had to keep them out of my life.
My best friend always projects her insecurities onto me. Should I break up with her? My best friend and I have known each other for exactly 2 years. We met in college and hit it off right away. We're both Latinas and we come from really big families. I have 2 other sisters and we get along really well. We always hype each other up and have each other's backs. A few months after I started my friendship with my best friend, let's call her Lucia. Lucia started showing some really toxic qualities. Sometimes I think I'm just reading too much into it or overreacting. So you let me know. First of all, she would start talking bad about my sisters in front of me. She would make comments like, wow, your sister's gained weight, or wow, your sister has cellulite. When she first did this, I would just defend my sisters, but then I realized that that just made her want to keep talking more trash. So if she ever said anything about my sisters, I wouldn't say anything. At the time our friendship started, I had a really big crush on this guy. He and I went to the same gym and I never had the courage to speak to him, not until my sister convinced me to. I finally spoke to him at the gym and we actually hit it off. We would work out together every now and then and he finally asked me out on a date. The day of our date, my best friend came over to my house, and while I was getting ready, she started saying really weird things. At first, she told me that I should wash my hair because it looked oily. I told her my hair was freshly washed. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I could see her reflection and she just rolled her eyes at me. This is when things started clicking. Part 2 is up. My best friend always projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? That's when she started swinging at my boyfriend. Luckily, I yelled at her and she stopped. It's like she was upset at me for yelling at her for trying to hit my boyfriend. That's when my boyfriend kicked her out of the car and I asked him to calm down. I got out of the car with Lucia and asked her to calm down. That's when she told me that I needed to break up with him and that he was clearly abusive. I told her he was just defending me. Then she said, he doesn't need to defend you. I'm only saying this because I care about you. Then she called herself an Uber and left. My boyfriend and I went to the movie theaters and we had a really nice night. Here's some more examples of her projecting on me. While we were getting ready for a friend's birthday party, she started pointing out some stuff on my body. She said, your elbows are really dark. You need to fix that. Another time I decided to get some highlights and she said they looked horrible on me. She said I looked like a JLo wannabe. Luckily, I didn't care and I just kept the highlights. Mind you, 2 months later, she got the exact same highlights. Now, I know that she cares about me because she does have my back. She'll help me with anything I need, honestly. And I wonder if I'm overreacting, but I don't think so. I just don't know how to tell her that she's toxic. She makes me feel bad. What should I do?
Story time about how I almost got kidnapped by my online boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade. So a year before this all happened, I posted a picture on Instagram saying, add me on Snapchat if you want to be friends. Yes, I was that person. Anyway, so this really cute guy adds me on Snapchat. And after about 3 months talking, he said that he wants to meet me in person. And he didn't sound sus at all, so I was like, sure. So we met at this park that was like 30 minutes away. And we met there around 6 o'clock, so when the sun was setting. And he was super nice. It was super romantic. Well, then we went to his house. We watched a movie and we did the nasty. So after that, he asked me if I want a drink. And what I could have swore was 20 minutes later, I wake up in an abandoned farm shed with no clothes or anything. So I start screaming my head off. I don't have my phone or anything, so I start to run. And then he grabs me. He says, if you try to run or you try to scream, I am going to kill you. Like for part 2 about how I almost got kidnapped by my online boyfriend. So like I said, I wake up in this abandoned farm shed. I don't have no clothes. I don't have a phone. So I try to run and he grabs me. He says that if you run, I will kill you. So I was like, okay, fine. What do you want from me? So he starts putting on lingerie and tells me to also put some on so we can take pictures together. What the actual you know what? So after that, he starts crying and he starts telling me his whole life story and how he's not who I think he is. Turns out that he's 32 and he just goes online pretending that he's 17 years old. So I just try to comfort him, right? It ends up working. He brings me my clothes, tells me to run, or else he's going to, once again, kill me. So I run, I go to this gas station, get picked up by the police, find my parents. Luckily for me, I paid attention to where everything was. He was arrested, he's still in prison to this day, and I got grounded for 3 months.
Story time, my best friend slept with my boyfriend on my birthday. So a little background information. I was 16 and a sophomore in high school. Well, I had this best friend who we are going to call Sarah. Her and I became super close over the summertime, but she was like on and off best friends with this other girl who we're gonna call Mackenzie. But I had this boyfriend who I was also really on and off with. And Sarah knew about all the problems within our relationship. Well, I guess I underestimated how close Sarah and Mackenzie were, because everything that I told Sarah, she went back and she told Mackenzie. And not to mention, Mackenzie was really close with my boyfriend. So of course, she told my boyfriend everything that I was saying. This ended up causing a huge fight between my boyfriend and I. Well, the night before my birthday, my boyfriend and I were going back and forth arguing. And around 12 a.m., on my birthday, I forced myself to fall asleep. And at around 1 a.m., I woke up to 20 Snapchat notifications, all from my boyfriend. And when I opened them, I saw the worst thing ever. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend slept with my boyfriend on my birthday. So like I said, I woke up at around 1 a.m. to 20 Snapchat notifications from my boyfriend. And I saw the absolute worst thing ever. The first 5 notifications were just him calling me names. And then all the other ones were just him doing stuff with my best friend. And you guys can already guess what I mean by doing stuff. So at this point, I was heartbroken, I was pissed off. But of course, because I gotta have the receipts, I went and took a video off my sister's phone of everything that he sent me. In the morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number, and it turned out to be my boyfriend's best friend saying that him and Sarah were now together. So my boyfriend asked me to meet up and apologize. So I met him at this park, and he apologized to me, telling me that he wanted to get back together with me. But I told him to KMA, and I left. Then Sarah came to my house and keyed my car, and then we fought on my front lawn. And then after that, she was texting me about how she was coming back to my house. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my best friend slept with my boyfriend. So like I said, she came to my house and she keyed my car. And I caught her, so I went outside. We fought on my front lawn. After she left, she kept sending me messages saying that she was coming back to my house so we could fight again. But she was blocked, so I didn't get any of the messages. And then my ex came to my house and brought me flowers. And this was all in a span of 1 day. So because it was my birthday party, my cousins were at my house, and I already told them everything that happened. So they went outside, and they fought him. Well, then I ended up sending all the videos to his parents, her parents, his siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins who loved me. Then I also decided to take legal action, and I sent the cops all of the screenshots of Sarah harassing me. And my sister got a video of us fighting, so I sent that to them too. Well, since she was 18 and I literally just turned 16, she got 3 months in county jail for minor harassment and minor physical altercations. So in the end, I think I won.
Story time about how my husband stole my dog because I told his family that he's gay. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My husband and I had been married for 6 months before I realized he was gay. The way I found out is horrendous. Husband, almost ex, he has a gardening business. This means he works with a lot of guys. The guys that he started hiring were all very young, very attractive. Obviously, I didn't care because I never thought that he would be gay. Well, I come home one day early from work, only to find him and 3 other guys on the couch, doing different things to each other. I was horrified. I was seriously triggered and traumatized. You see, I had been essayed by 2 boys when I was in college, so walking into this literally made me vomit. Even got flashbacks. What did my husband do? The man kicked me out of the house, closed the door on me. So I proceed to start ringing the doorbell. So I decide to call 911 and say that there's 2 intruders in my house, which I mean there are. By the time the police come, they're all dressed up. Of course, it was my word against theirs. The police told me that all I could do was get a divorce. At the time, I had a 2-month-old puppy. My husband didn't really like the puppy. He was a lot of work, but it was my responsibility. After I caught him, I ran straight to his mom's house and spilled the beans. His mom and dad were furious. They called him, but he wouldn't answer his phone. Called my sister and she told me that I should just go live with her. I go home to grab my things and my puppy, but my puppy is nowhere to be found. That's when my husband told me that he probably ran away. This man refused to help me look for him. I'm filing a divorce, but it's been a month since I saw my puppy, and I know the puppy's somewhere in the house. My husband doesn't let me back into the house though, and the cops were absolutely no use. I'm planning on breaking in. I mean, what should I do? Give me advice. My stepbrother confessed that he has feelings for me, and now I'm catching feelings. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My dad was single for years after my mom and him split. I decided to move in with my dad because my mom and I don't have the best relationship. I was floored when I got to my new high school. There were so many cute boys, including my stepbrother. His mom was single and she was looking for a man. My dad and her met at a yoga class. They hit it off right away. I mean, right away. A month into their relationship, they wanted to move in together. During that month, I developed a crush on several boys, but my stepbrother was not one of them. You see, he had a girlfriend, and I am no homewrecker. But when we moved in together, we started hanging out a lot. He was making the effort to be with me all the time. First, I thought it was kind of sweet. Like, okay, we're like stepbrother and stepsister now. But no, he broke up with his girlfriend and he started hanging out with me every day after school. We started watching movies together. We were cooking together. We would do all our chores together. And then finally, our parents told us that they were engaged. So we knew this was going to be for the long run. Prom was nearing and a boy asked me out to prom. He grabbed my arm and made me swear that I wouldn't go out with this boy. And I asked him why. He said this guy was a player, that he would only try to do the dirty with me. Then he confessed that he was jealous. Part 2 is a story time about how I'm catching feelings for my stepbrother. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. That's when my stepbrother confessed that he was jealous. I mean, I knew that he liked me, but I didn't know that he liked me. Essentially, he told me that he did not want me going out with this boy to prom because he was really bad news. So I told him that I wouldn't. Went back to the boy and told him I couldn't go to prom with him. After that, my stepbrother asked me if I wanted to go to prom with him. Okay, everyone in school knew that our parents were engaged. Essentially, we're stepbrother and stepsister. But let me tell you, after his confession, I could not stop thinking about him. I mean, his room was right across from mine. He had so many girls chasing him at school. A few days later, his ex comes up to me at school and calls me a slut. Apparently, the rumor was going around that him and I were together. And this girl was not happy. When I got in his car to go home with him, I broke down and started to cry. Then he told me that he told his ex that he had a crush on me. And then we kissed. And I had never been kissed like that. He was so sweet yet so passionate. We stared at each other at the dinner table. He tried to kiss me again at home, but I didn't let him. I'm gonna have to update you guys. What should I do about this? Story time about how my date put something in my drink. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I have the worst luck with guys. I'm an extremely shy person. So I signed up to every dating app you can imagine. I matched with this guy on Hinge and he suggested that we talk for a few weeks before we even decided to meet up. And he meant like seriously talk. We texted pretty much all day long for 4 weeks. In the last week, we decided to FaceTime. At this point, I was completely and utterly obsessed with him. And then I realized that he looked like Ryan Gosling. Huge coincidence because Ryan Gosling is my biggest celebrity crush. After the 4 weeks, we decided to finally meet up. Second crazy coincidence, the bar we chose was local to both of us. Little did we know that we lived 2 minutes away from the bar in opposite directions. We went straight to the bar and started ordering drinks. We both had 2 drinks, and after 30 minutes, we ordered another set of drinks. Usually on a first date, I would never go for a third drink, but I liked him so much and I was so comfortable that I decided to get the third drink. Not even 4 minutes after I finished the drink, I start feeling so dizzy and sick. He obviously noticed right away and suggested that we go get some food. We walked around the corner to a pizza place and grabbed a bite. Suddenly, I'm in his apartment. He starts kissing me and tries to go, down there, and I kept saying no. Kissing became more aggressive, eventually leading him to pin my arms down to my sides. Out of nowhere, a UPS guy shows up and starts knocking on the door trying to get a signature. I ran out of that apartment so quickly, I reported him the next day. But when they tested my blood, they said there was nothing in my system. So basically, it's my word against his. Guess what? This guy has not stopped messaging me. I need to catch him in the act. What should I do?
Story time. My boyfriend cheated on me with the girl best friend. So a little background information, I was 17 and a junior in high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for a year. But just a little backstory about when we got together. So there were definitely some red flags that I missed, okay? One of them being that he had a girl best friend. And I don't care what y'all have to say if that makes me insecure or what. But coming from someone who has been the girl best friend, I knew this was not good at all. Especially whenever we first started dating and she was still being super friendly with him, meaning she would hold his hand, she would hang on him 24/7. And when I told him I was super uncomfortable with that and I felt like there needed to be some boundaries, he was like, yeah, I told you what it was whenever we got together. So if you don't like that, then just break up with me. Looking back on it now, that was also a red flag because I feel like he was telling me to break up with him so that way he didn't have to break up with me, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend cheated on me with the girl best friend. So like I said, she would still hang all over him and he pretty much told me, if you don't like that, then you can leave. Obviously, I did not want to leave because I liked him and he was my boyfriend. So I just kept putting up with it and eventually, you know, we got 6 months into our relationship. So at that point, I'm thinking maybe I have a little bit more authority, you know, to be like, hey, I don't like the way that she acts around you. You guys can't hang out like that anymore. And they would hang out alone together. He would take her to dinner. I literally tried telling him that the stuff that they do together is relationship stuff. And he was like, that's not true at all because we did all of this stuff before you and I even got together. So anyways, like I said, 6 months in, I'm like, hey, I don't like the way that you guys are hanging around each other. Once again, he gives me the same excuse. So he pretty much said that he didn't care. And the one night him and I were supposed to hang out, but he canceled on me last minute. And her and I didn't get along and she never Snapchatted me before, but then I get a Snapchat of her and him making out at his house. Part 3 about why I will never ever ever babysit ever again. So like I said, I picked up the stack of towels and a camera that was recording fell out of it. And while I was home later that night, I was waiting for my mom to get home when I got a call from Will. And if you don't remember who that is, that's Autumn's dad. And of course I wasn't going to answer the phone because I was super weirded out and low-key scared. But then he left a voicemail. And he was like, hey, so I know you have the camera. And this is kind of awkward, but I'm gonna need it back. I can pay you whatever you want, and I would prefer that we don't tell anybody about this. Sometimes I'm just really amazed at how stupid people are because as soon as my mom got home, I showed her the camera and I let her listen to the voicemail. So my mom called over Autumn's mom. So they called the police, and Autumn's mom kept trying to call Will, but his phone was going straight to voicemail. And she was like, yeah, he begged me not to come over here whenever you called. It's been a week since this happened, and Autumn's dad is currently running from the cops. About how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade. And we're gonna call my best friend Ashley. Ashley was really nice at first. She always had my back when I needed her. But then out of nowhere, she started being super rude to me. She turned into one of those pick-me girls that would always make fun of you in front of other guys, talk crap about you to the guy that you liked. Well, the one day I hear her talking shit about me whenever we were in class. And everybody could hear her. She was literally on the whole other side of the class. And I asked her, hey, like, why were you talking about me? She was like, no, I was talking about a different girl. And I had a pretty unique name, so I was like, who else in the school could you have been talking about? But I just brushed it off. Well, then we were in algebra class and I heard her talking shit about me again. How I do my makeup so bad and I can never get a boyfriend, like I'm so ugly and all that stuff. Well, she thought that I wasn't mad at her, so she came up to me the one day and was like, OMG, I have a boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, she would talk shit about me all the time, and I only confronted her that one time, so she thought that we were all good. So the one day before class starts, she runs up to me, she's like, oh my god, you'll never guess what? I have a boyfriend. She's like, he's so cute, he's really popular, he's on the football team. And I was like, girl, whatever, nobody cares. Until I'm sitting in my first class of the day and I remember that she made out with my boyfriend last year. I forgave her, of course. But because karma was taking a little bit too long, I figured I had to do something about it myself. So my plan was to hook up with her boyfriend. Do I feel bad about it? Absolutely not. So I went to my school's football game, and guess who I saw? My best friend's boyfriend. She couldn't make it that night, she had something to do, so I had him all to myself. So I went up to him, I started flirting with him, and I was like, oh, you should break up with your girlfriend and date me instead. But then he was like, I thought you guys were best friends and I would never date you. Like for part...
I lied to my husband and told him I couldn't get pregnant so that we wouldn't have children.
Ay, Dios mío. Welcome to The Confessional, a series where you guys send me your story times and confessions through here, and I tell them on TikTok so that you can get some genuine advice. Ever since I was small, I knew I didn't want to be a mom, but I did want to get married, and I knew that this was going to make it harder for me to find a husband if he knew that I didn't want to have kids. When I met my now husband, I was 32 and my mom and I were desperate for me to get married. Nothing good comes out of desperation. I press record. I think I'm recording and I'm not recording. Because my mom and I were so desperate to find me a man, we were literally turning rocks over to find anybody. I mean anybody. I signed up for every dating app and went on about 20 dates in the first month. Tell me about your guys' dating stories on apps because I've never done it. I'm very curious to know what it's like. I finally settled on the guy I'm married to now. He was also desperate for a relationship at the time, so we got engaged really quickly. In my desperation to get married, I decided that I would lie. I spoke to my mom and we both agreed that it would be best to just say I couldn't have kids. During our engagement, we'd had a conversation about children, but I told him that I had never gotten checked and that I didn't even know if I could have children, but he said it probably wouldn't be a problem because I was pretty healthy. But once we got married, I told him I went to the doctor to get checked and I was told I was infertile. He was devastated. What a liar. I honestly didn't realize how much he would suffer and I did regret it. I felt so bad I almost went back on the lie. A few days later, he told me that we could adopt. I told him that the only kids I wanted to have were his, not someone else's. My mom ended up spilling the beans to my dad about the lie, and my dad went crazy on me. He showed up to my house in the middle of the night and almost forced me to tell my husband the truth. He said he was so disappointed that I would come up with such a lie just to get married. I told him he didn't understand because he got married young and men don't have a problem finding wives, but it's the opposite for women. Also, my dad didn't even know that I didn't want to have kids. He was crushed. Said he was hoping to become a grandfather and he even cried. I managed to calm my dad down, but I didn't speak to my mom for 2 months for telling on me. I constantly go out with all my friends that have kids, and I really wish I had that relationship with the child. I made a mistake, and now I want to fix it. The really messed up thing is that I've been taking birth control. I've been taking birth control this entire time that we've been married. My husband doesn't know, and as soon as I decided I did want to have kids, I stopped taking the birth control. Oh my gosh. I ended up getting pregnant about 3 weeks later. I think I'm just gonna act surprised like we both found out at the same time. I'll tell him that the original doctor must have been wrong and that it was a misdiagnosis. This is obviously gonna make my husband happy, so wish me luck. Congratulations on the pregnancy. You're gonna be a great mom. Bye.
Storytime. Is blood really thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So a little background information. I was 16 years old and I was in 10th grade. And I had just started dating this guy that my friends introduced me to. He was extremely attractive, really smart, and really kind. Literally had all the traits a girl could want in a boyfriend. So him and I are talking for a while, and then we start dating, and we were amazing together. And my sister had just came back home from teaching in Thailand. Surprisingly, her and I got super close because we always used to fight with each other. And now we were inseparable. The only issue was she was 25 years old acting like a child. She always wanted to be at my boyfriend's house with him and his family. Weird, I know. Anyway, so she was always over there with them and I thought that maybe she was just lonely. Wrong, of course. Now, of course, like any other relationship, mine wasn't perfect, but my boyfriend and I started having more problems than usual when my sister showed up. He was being super weird and all the signs pointed to him cheating on me. Like for part 2. Part 2, is blood thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So like I said, my sister started spending more time at my boyfriend's house. I thought that she was lonely, but then my boyfriend started acting weird and all the signs pointing to him cheating on me. But I ignored it because I thought that him and I were in love like in the movies. And also, if I broke up with him, it would be like breaking up with his family because I love them like my own. Fast forward, his sister ends up getting married and my sister and I were invited to the wedding. Fast forward, everybody gets drunk. We end up spending the night at his cousin's house and something was off with my boyfriend. He wasn't really talking to me. He wouldn't touch me. He pretty much acted like he was done with me. Well, then there's my sister who was flirting and touching him like it was normal. Fast forward a month, I asked my sister if anything happened between them and she goes, I think we slept together. So I confronted him about it and he just laughs and he's like, it wasn't that serious. So I end up breaking up with him and then I start finding unhealthy ways to cope, aka drinking. And eventually I got so lonely to the point where I forgave my sister. And then I started seeing this other guy and he was amazing, like for part 3. Part 3, is blood thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So like I said, I forgave my sister and then I got a new guy. He was amazing. And then my sister started begging to hang out with us. Now, of course, you would have thought that I learned from the first time, but I did not. I just completely ignored the signs that God gave me that she was a bad person. Okay, I guess not a bad person. She just didn't give a fuck about my feelings. Well, the one weekend his parents went away and they needed him to house sit, so he invited me over. to house sit with him, and then guess who tags along? My sister. I mean, I guess I could have told her that she couldn't come, but at the same time, I was trying to be a forgiving person, okay? And I thought that she wouldn't do this shit to me again. Well, I was wrong, because on the last night of house sitting, we all decided that we were gonna get drunk, and my sister made sure that I got more effed up than everybody else. I ended up actually getting alcohol poisoning, and I almost died, but she didn't care. She was too focused on sleeping with the new guy. The worst part of this is they started dating, and my mom was on her side. It's been 3 years, and I'm still trying to forgive her and
My mother moved in her abusive boyfriend into our house only for him to abuse me, and she did nothing about it. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. All of this happened over 10 years ago. When I was 16, my mother met the devil in the form of a personal trainer. My mom and dad at the time had gotten a divorce. My dad started dating somebody else, and my mom started dating her personal trainer. Now, the extent of her obsession with this man was disgusting. She would do anything to impress him. She would even try to pay for his bills. She got him a bunch of clients for his gym. She would buy him gifts every single week. She was completely and utterly obsessed. From the moment I met him, I knew there was something wrong with him. He would tell my mom that I needed to be disciplined. He also judged the way that I dressed. He would judge my friends, so I started defending myself. I would talk back to him, but this just made him even angrier. Let me just give you some context. I was a straight A student. I was captain of my soccer team, and my mom and I had never had any issues before that. So he kept brainwashing my mom into believing that I was just a bad kid. And for some reason, my mom started agreeing with him. 2 months later, he convinced my mom that he should move in with us. That's when the abuse started. He gave us rules. If I broke them, I had to run for an hour. Part 2 is my mother moved in her abusive boyfriend into our house only for him to abuse me, and she would do nothing about it. Disclaimer, is not my story time. So he made a set of rules. He typed them out, printed them, and put them on the fridge. And if I broke any of these rules, I had to run on the treadmill for an hour. Like I said, my mom and I had never had any issues before him. We were more like best friends, and she believed me. At this point, he had completely brainwashed her into believing that I was just a rebel, and that I needed to be disciplined. One of his rules was that I couldn't eat past 10 p.m. He would lock the fridge so that I couldn't get in. I would come home so late from school because I was in so many clubs and sports. By the time I came home, he would force me to do my homework. After that, I had about half an hour to stuff my face with anything I could find. He even told my mom not to make me dinner because I needed to become self-sufficient. I lost about 10 pounds within a month. I was playing soccer every single day. When I would get to school, I would try to eat as much as I could. One day I broke the lock on the fridge, and he threw me so hard into a wall I got a concussion. He told my mom that I did it. Part 3 is my mom's boyfriend would abuse me and she would do nothing about it. Disclaimer, is not my story time. After he threw me into the wall and gave me a concussion, he told my mom that I was the one trying to fight him, that all he did was try to push me off and I hit the wall. My mom believed him. He would find any reason to grab me by the arm and shake me. He would hide my backpack and my shoes so that I would be late to school. And anytime my friends came over, he would bully us. Eventually it escalated to slapping me every time I talked back. My mom would see it and not do anything. When I complained to her, she would cry but not do anything. I asked her to kick him out and she didn't. She told me that she was afraid of being by herself. I was not going to wait for the next time. I grabbed my backpack and ran to my dad's house. And when I told my dad what was happening, he took me to the police and we made a report. When the police showed up to my mom's house, she came to her senses and realized what was happening. She kicked him out and I didn't speak to her for 3 years. I ended up getting back with him, but then they broke up again. I'm now into real estate and I own several properties. My dad and I see each other every single day. I barely speak to my mom. I recently found out she got back together with him. How do I break them up? Give me ideas.
Part 3 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, I went to the football game. She wasn't there because she had something else to do. I went up to him. I started flirting. I told him that he should break up with her and date me instead. And I also said that she was a bitch and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he was like, why would you say that about your best friend? And he was like, I would never date you. And I had a feeling this would happen. So I had photoshopped a picture of her and this guy that she sits next to in her lab class. And I showed it to him and I was like, see, she's cheating on you. So he was pissed off. He gave me his number. And the next day he came over to my house. We cuddled, watched movies, we kissed. After 3 months, Ashley found out. We hadn't talked to each other since then, but now I am 16 in 10th grade and still with her ex-boyfriend. Funny thing though, the picture that I photoshopped with her and that guy, she's literally dating him now. So you're welcome, I guess. But anyway, she still goes around talking shit on me. I mean, who can blame her? I did steal time about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade. And we're gonna call my best friend Ashley. Ashley was really nice at first. She always had my back when I needed her. But then out of nowhere, she started being super rude to me. She turned into one of those pick-me girls that would always make fun of you in front of other guys, talk crap about you to the guy that you liked. Well, the one day I hear her talking shit about me whenever we were in class. And everybody could hear her. She was literally on the whole other side of the class. And I asked her, hey, like, why were you talking about me? She was like, no, I was talking about a different girl. And I had a pretty unique name, so I was like, who else in the school could you have been talking about? But I just brushed it off. Well, then we were in algebra class and I heard her talking shit about me again.
how I do my makeup so bad and I can never get a boyfriend, like I'm so ugly and all that stuff. Well, she thought that I wasn't mad at her, so she came up to me the one day and was like, OMG, I have a boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, she would talk shit about me all the time, and I only confronted her that one time, so she thought that we were all good. So the one day before class starts, she runs up to me, she's like, oh my god, you'll never guess what? I have a boyfriend. She's like, he's so cute, he's really popular, he's on the football team. And I was like, girl, whatever, nobody cares. Until I'm sitting in my first class of the day, and I remember that she made out with my boyfriend last year. I forgave her, of course. But because karma was taking a little bit too long, I figured I had to do something about it myself. So my plan was to hook up with her boyfriend. Do I feel bad about it? Absolutely not. So I went to my school's football game, and guess who I saw? My best friend's boyfriend. She couldn't make it that night, she had something to do, so I had him all to myself. So I went up to him, I started flirting with him, and I was like, oh, you should break up with your girlfriend and date me instead. But then he was like, I thought you guys were best friends and I would never date you. Like for part story time about my unhealthy obsession with my ex-boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 18 and in 12th grade, and him and I have been dating for about 4 years. And it was around Thanksgiving, so it was pretty much college decision time. I got accepted into UCLA and I was really happy because it was super close to home. And my boyfriend, who we're gonna call Devin, got accepted there also. So I was super excited that we did not have to do the long distance thing. Until a week later, he calls me, and apparently he got some soccer scholarship, so now he's going to Berkeley. So I was like, okay, maybe we can make long distance work. Well, then he tells me that he doesn't want to make it work and he thinks that we should just break up. Well, a week after that, him and I were sleeping together again, so I thought that meant that we were back together. The one day I was leaving his house and I heard his mom talking about me, and she was like, oh, is she coming to the Christmas party? And I was super, super happy. Until Devin says, oh, we're not together anymore and I'm thinking of inviting a different girl. Well, a week later, the party rolls around and I decide that I'm going to show up anyways. Like for part 2.
My husband and I had an affair with the same man. Welcome to the confessional series where you guys send me your confessionals through here and I tell them on TikTok so you can get some genuine advice. I'm 27 years old and my husband is 34. Before we got married, I knew that he was bisexual, so this was not a problem to me. Last year, we both decided to get in shape and signed up for the same gym. Okay, I see where this is going. The way this palette has a chokehold on me. And of course, my husband insisted on getting me a personal trainer. My husband is no longer attracted to me, so he needs me to get in shape. Over the years, I've gained about 20 pounds and my husband's always telling me how I used to look was so much better. Is he Brad Pitt? The personal trainer I was assigned at the gym was really good looking. I was super happy about this because I knew my husband was going to get jealous, but not the kind of jealousy I was expecting. I kept noticing that my husband would stare at the trainer every single time he came around. And then of course my husband requested he train him too. Every single day we'd go to the gym together, he would train for half an hour and then I would train for half an hour. This is when I started noticing some funny things. Just to piss my husband off, I would periodically go check on him while he was working out. Good for you, sis. Be petty. Be petty. My husband would just look me up and down and ask, what are you doing? And then I'd say, just come in and check on you. Without fail, every time I showed up to just check on them, they would stop their conversation. It's like they were trying to hide what they were saying. What I did next was absolutely next level bitch. I completely changed the way I started dressing to the gym. I started wearing thongs and short shorts. And it worked. I got the attention of my trainer and we started flirting. From there, it was easy. All I had to do was pretend I liked him. Eventually, I actually did start liking him, and that's when I decided to propose the affair. Problematic queen over here. My husband was so busy getting in shape and flirting with the trainer that he didn't even notice our affair. A couple of months later, I was in the best shape of my life. My husband was also in pretty good shape, but we were not getting along at all. We were constantly fighting, and every time we went to the gym, it was a huge argument. He was always upset because I was always flirting with the trainer. And if you're wondering, my husband and I did have an open relationship in the past. During this time, my husband was hooking up with men and women as well. When I told my husband about the affair, he just laughed. I was so shocked at his behavior, I asked him what was so funny. He looks at me and says, I've been a trainer as well. And here's something I forgot to mention. I was giving him money. I was basically this man's sugar mama. So I'm only 3 years older than the trainer. That's when my husband says, how much money have you been giving him? We were both giving him about $1,000 a month. Damn, this trainer got lucky with you guys. Couldn't even get mad at each other because we thought it was so funny that we had been both having an affair with the same man and both giving him money. This actually brought us back together and we decided to make peace. My husband said that he would end the affair with the trainer and I told him that I would too. But that was a lie. I'm pretty sure my husband's having another affair with another man from the gym. This man also goes to the gym and I see them talking all the time. I got jealous for a few days, but then I got over it. Queen. I felt a little sus about the trainer, so I told him that I wasn't able to give him money anymore. Guess what he did? He told me that he couldn't see me anymore. His girlfriend had found out about the relationship. So I got really angry and I told him that my husband and I knew that he was having an affair with both of us and that we were both giving him money. And I also told him that if he didn't want me to ask for the money, then he should quit the job so that I can feel at peace at the gym. So he quit. I'm definitely looking to start another affair. I know what you guys are thinking. We should probably just get divorced. But no, we're happy, we have money, and we can have affairs. I don't really need your advice. I just wanted to tell you. Oh my god.
Part 2 about why I hate Valentine's Day. So like I said, I Uber to his apartment and I knock on the door and I hear some woman from inside say, "Don't worry, babe, I'll get it." So I hurry up and try to tie my coat because I had untied it thinking that my boyfriend was going to open the door. But no, why would my boyfriend open his own door to his own apartment that he lives alone in? So she opens the door and she's like, "Hi, what can I help you with?" And I'm like, "Oh, is this apartment blah, blah, blah?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, well, is Jimmy here?" And she was like, "Yeah." So she calls Jimmy over to the door. I look directly at him and I'm like, "Oh, is this like your friend or something?" And she's like, "Excuse me, I'm his fiance." So I'm looking at him all confused and I start screaming that he's a liar, a cheater. He's like, "Babe, go call the police. I have no idea who this woman is. She sounds crazy." So his fiance walks away and he goes, "I'm sorry, I'll call you later." And then security escorts me off the property. Needless to say, I never talk to him ever again. Storytime about how my crazy-ass cousin broke up my family. So a little background information, my cousin Brandy has been married to her wife for about 16 years. And they both have 3 kids together, and I live with my brother and sister-in-law, Nora. Both of our families were super close, they were always coming over to our house, vice versa. Now, this is where you gotta keep up. My cousin Brandy started cheating on her wife with Nora's sister, Taylor. And that meant that Taylor was cheating on her boyfriend and they had 3 kids together also. And this all started happening the night of my nephew's birthday party. They literally did the nasty that day and then showed up at different times to play it off, like they weren't doing anything. And nobody really found out about any of this until Thanksgiving of last year. But the drama is still going on till this day and it only gets worse. My cousin Brandy convinced Taylor to break it off with her boyfriend and completely leave her 3 children for her. Meanwhile, Brandy is still with her wife. Like for part 2. Storytime about why I hate Valentine's Day. So a little background information, I was 22 years old and I had been dating this guy for almost a year. And we're gonna call him Jimmy. Most of Jimmy and I's relationship had been long distance because literally after 2 months of us dating, he was offered a job in a different state. And I never worried about him cheating on me or anything like that because he seemed like a really honest and genuine guy. But of course I was wrong because he said that he couldn't do anything for Valentine's Day because he had to work. So me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna fly to him, so we can spend Valentine's Day together. And it'll be a nice surprise." So a few days before Valentine's Day, I get my plane ticket and I wanted to do something special. So I wore some nice lingerie under a trench coat. Well, fast forward, my plane lands and I get an Uber to his apartment. And when I knock on his door, I hear a woman's voice from inside saying, "Don't worry, I'll get the door." Like for part 2.